Hi guys. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Let's really get straight into it because I'm starving. Right now we're about to try vegan soul food from Detroit. Vegan soul. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called vegan soul food, whatever. It's in Detroit. I went to the west side location. I heard the east side was better, but I think that the east side was closed, so anyways, I have never tried it before. Before we get started, I want you to know that I have catfish, tofu. I don't know how it tastes, but I can't even speak because I'm so hungry. I also have black-eyed peas over rice. I have collard greens, some cornbread, some yams, and some macaroni and cheese. And then I also have some spring rolls. They're collard green spring rolls. So I'm super excited. My mouth is watering. I also have a Canada Dry here. Alright y'all, so by the title of this video, you can already tell that I'm going to be talking about my experience with Werner, pretty much everything dealing with training. And I'm looking over here because I actually wrote it down because my mind is everywhere, but I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to be talking about pay, I'm going to be talking about the training that they had me go through, I'm going to be talking about the cabin, the management, maintenance, accommodations, and my overall cons, and whether or not I feel like Werner is a good company to start with or just in general. So if you are interested, keep on watching. I'm about to smash. I'm hungry. Goodness gracious. First of all, let me open this and pour this in here because I like a straw. And then they also gave me some dip. I don't know what this dip is, but it smells like tartar sauce. Actually, maybe it goes with the catfish. So I'm gonna try it real quick. Thank you, Lord, for this food that I'm about to receive, and the Holy Name of Christ, please this food into the body of and strong and love you more. Amen. Let me see. Okay, I should have tried it alone first for me to judge this, so let me just judge it real quick. I give it a good 7.5 out of 10. It's a different texture than catfish. I don't really know what I would expect from tofu. I generally don't care for tofu, but the breading, it has the flavor of something close to catfish. Also, if you can't tell, the fireplace is on. It's cold down here. I'm in the basement. I didn't warm the catfish up, but I did warm everything else up. Y'all, I'm hungry. You can't tell, if you can't tell already. And I also don't know what this is. This might be like sweet and sour sauce. This smells like a certain zingy sauce. I should have asked what this is. Let me try it. So this is collard green spring rolls. That's good. Child, that's good. Wow. I don't know if it's because of the sauce. This sauce it gives it like a sweet and tangy sort of Asian zing to it. Okay, let me get started. Alright, so first I'm going to talk about training because that's the beginning. In my last video, I did explain how I went through training to get my CDL permit and my CDL license. Once I started with Werner, however, they wanted me to go into training too, which, just to give you insight, before I started with Werner, they did want my driving record, my background record, and things like that. So I had to give them that info. But other than that, it was relatively easy to get into the company. Let me try this macaroni and cheese. All right, so the deal on the macaroni and cheese is it's giving me almond milk vibes. I don't have that sharp cheddar. I'm gonna give it like a 6 out of 10. It's not mac and cheese. This reminds me more of like, this would be more closely related to maybe a corn pudding than a macaroni and cheese. Not because it tastes like corn, but it would be closer to that than it would be macaroni and cheese. It's not bad though. Okay, certain pieces of it does have more of a sharp cheddar taste too. But anyways, so with Werner, once they hired me in, or pre-hired me in, because you don't really get hired and into your own truck until after you started training. So they had me where I came, in order for me to get started, I had to start with training. And Werner isn't based in Michigan per se. They don't have a terminal in Michigan. The closest terminal that they had was in Springfield, Ohio. But I heard that the better location was in Joliet, Illinois. So I asked them if I would be able to do my training in Joliet, Illinois instead. And they said yes, of course. So I went ahead and trained in Joliet, Illinois at their terminal. So once I went into Joliet, Illinois, they started me in training. And with training, it generally went with me doing 2 days in a sit-down classroom-like situation. And of course, I was there, and they were, just like every other company, even if it's not trucking, they try to tell you about all their regulations, what you should and shouldn't do with a Werner and stuff like that. For 2 days from, I think like, I want to say like 9 to 5. And then in the moments where we weren't there, they had us all lodged into a hotel. So for 2 days, we did the sit down orientation thing. And then after that, they had it where we were doing like simulators, maneuver courses, not courses, but like a trainer will have maybe 4 of us, and he'll have us all get into the truck and perform a maneuver. And depending on if we passed or failed, that is whether or not we can go on to the next test. So for like a week or 2, we were all lodged into this hotel. And what would happen is there was a separate building, and a shuttle would come and pick us up in the morning. We all had to sign in, and when we were signed in, they would tell us what we would need to do, whether or not we had to leave the hotel and go to the other building, or just what the plans were for us specifically. And depending on what our plans were, after our meeting, we would go in the shuttle, go to the building that we were supposed to be going to, and then from there they would have us either do a simulator or a maneuver or just anything of that. Also, while we were waiting, we also had to do e-trainers, which is pretty much just, you know how you had to watch a video, and then based off what information they told you in the video, you have to answer questions, like multiple choice questions, just for them to know that you know the information needed to drive a truck. So like, for instance, if it's snowing outside, what should you do? Speed up, slow down, go the speed limit, go below the speed limit, and you would have to choose the answer. And by the end of the quiz, it would tell you if you passed or not. And if you failed, you had to retake that quiz on your phone. So we had to do e-trainers on our off time, and we had about 26 of them that we had to complete before the end of this course. The idea was, after we did all of this, we were going to be paired with a trainer. And with the trainer, you would be out for a month. So one of the cons I will say about this experience before we got on a trainer's truck is, for the most part, we had roommates, and the roommates, it wouldn't be like a room and then we would share a bathroom and then there would be another room. No, it was one room with 2 queen size beds, and so we would be essentially in the same room and share a bathroom as well. And me being introverted, I wasn't happy about that. Of course, I wasn't complaining and super angry about it, but child, I was not excited. Ironically, from my own personal experience, I was in the training period for a little bit longer than everyone else because something happened with my paperwork. The collard greens. My goodness. This is amazing. Oh, that's good. Oh, yes, Lord. Now, the collard greens are fire. I give them like a 9 out of 10. The little corn muffin is pretty good too. Anyways, so this is so good, y'all. I'm sorry. My goodness, this is good. This is so good. Oh, I'm in heaven. Yes, Lord. I haven't eaten but a muffin today. Not even a full muffin, a half a muffin, so that I could eat and finish this. I probably won't, because the con to that is you can't eat as much if you haven't eaten. Weird. Am I the only one that has that happen? I'm so off topic. Anyways, so the con is you had to have a roommate, but one of the pros was you got paid for the training. So if I'm to be 100% specific with you, we all got paid around, I'm gonna say after tax, about, I wonder if that's information I can't tell. I wonder. Just know that we got paid around the $600 mark a week just to be in training. That wasn't with us driving or anything. We were just getting trained. Excuse me. In the first 2 days of orientation, they fed us for free. And from there, we could get a shuttle taken to Walmart if we wanted to. There were restaurants nearby at this specific terminal. So another pro is they allowed us to choose the type of trainer we wanted. So being that this is a larger company, we were able to choose the type of trainer we wanted because they had more people that were training. So for instance, if you wanted a male trainer, non-smoker, or smoker, or woman trainer, you could choose that. And so of course I chose woman non-smoker because I don't smoke, and that's what I got. She ended up smoking, but she was a woman, so that was cool. So because I was there a little bit longer than the average person, I would say the average person would be there for about a week and a half. I had already passed all of my stuff, and I was still there waiting on them to sign me up to a trainer. So I was waking up in the mornings, going to the meetings, and then coming right back upstairs and chilling in the hotel room. Only thing with that is I had a roommate. Now the roommates would be off doing whatever they needed to do because nobody was literally sitting dormant but me, because I was waiting on these paperwork situations to get resolved. But towards the end of the day, the roommate would come back and stuff, so I'd just be in the room with the roommate. Now you did have the opportunity to go and do whatever you wanted to do, but I really wasn't doing that because I was trying to preserve my money, and I was trying to You know, I was also not familiar with Joliet, Illinois. But that's just the type of person I am. I'm sort of a homebody, if you can't tell. But so yeah, after 3 weeks, they signed me up with a trainer who already had a trainee with her, and so we did the 2+1 thing, which I've stated in previous videos. From there, I went out and trained with my trainer for about 1 month. And after I trained for that 1 month, she okayed me, and once she okayed me, she took me back to my terminal where they tested me out, which is pretty much somebody sitting in a passenger seat letting me drive around until they mark everything off, and then we come back, and that's when they assign me a truck, and as soon as I can leave, I can leave. Now, they will allow me to go. They would have allowed me to go home if I wanted to go home. I don't know if I did go home. Can't really remember that part. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. So that was the experience of training. Now we're gonna get into the specs of my experience with Werner specifically. And we're gonna start off with pay. So I've already stated this in one of my earlier videos, but just to be quick and simple, I got paid around $50K a year as an over-the-road driver who was solo driving with no endorsements and no touch freight. Okay, so they have multiple accounts with Werner. You can drive the Family Dollar account or the Dollar Tree account. Those accounts are when you are driving alone. You're probably driving regional, and you are, so regional meaning that you're probably in the same 5 to 6, 7 states, and you are unloading the trailer. So what you would do is you would pull up to the Dollar Tree or the Family Dollar. You would back into their dock, which is at the back of their store. And from there, you would more than likely have rollers or something. And you would hook them to the back of their store. And there would be boxes filled to the brim. I mean, as long and as tall as that trailer is, it would be boxes filled on both ends. And you would take those boxes down, set them on a roller, push them down, and you would continue to do this until the trailer was empty. Now, you would have multiple stops, so you probably wouldn't unload the entire trailer at one store. You would probably unload 1/4 and then go to 3 other stops, or maybe it'll be split between 3 or 2 stops, but it's very unlikely that you'll only have 1 stop. And that would be every day or something of the sort. I think it would be like every other day. So you'd be driving to one location doing that, and then driving to the other location the next day and doing that, something like that. So yeah, that's an account, and you get paid more for that. I'll be honest with you, I think after taxes you probably make around $1,400 or less or so doing that account, but it also depends on your experience too, so factor that into how much money you would receive. But yep, so pay, I give it, I mean, for a new driver, the pay wasn't that bad. I will admit, I knew someone who started driving just like I did, but at a different company, and they were getting paid half of what I was getting paid, and they were doing more mileage than I was, which was ridiculous. So I won't say Werner's the highest paid company at all, because I know that not to be true. But I will say it's not a bad company to start off with for pay alone. So next I'll talk about the cabin and the equipment and stuff that's on the cabin. So with the, or inside the cab. So with the truck, one of the things that I noticed now that I hadn't really thought too much about back then is that they gave me a 2020 International truck with about 40,000 miles on it starting off. And I had the privilege of having an automatic 5th wheel release puller, or a 5th wheel release button. So if I was trying to unhook from a trailer, all I would have to do is hold the button in, and it would allow me to release from the trailer. Now I'm in a company where I have to use the manual puller. I never had to do that before. So if you're someone who would prefer not to do that, I'm not saying Werner's the only company, but I'm saying it does have that pro to it. And it's really not that big of a deal. If you know how to unhook from the trailer, then you just do it. But I hadn't known that it was a privilege back then. I thought it was sort of normal because that was my first company. Also, one other thing that I noticed is that the company, right before I left, they did change their ELD device into a Samsung tablet. So they are constantly upgrading themselves. But when I was there, they had an ELD tablet, and that tablet served as a messaging system between me and the fleet manager, a notification system which told me about weather and things like that, if there was weather that I was going to be approaching, or just weather in general, that it would tell me push notifications like, hey, be careful, da 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 da. And then it was also a GPS, so I was able to use that primarily in order to get to places. I would use that in conjunction with my GPS on my phone, which is a trucker app. But it was pretty dope to have. Now that I'm in a company where I'm driving local, it's not that prevalent for me to have a legit GPS if you're driving local, because they expect you to figure it out. But I still use my phone if I have to, but I'm doing dedicated routes, so I know exactly where I'm going. But Werner, they give you the cushion of having a GPS. I never had to use a map as long as I was over the road, so that was cool. Next, I'll talk about management. So, simply put, the fleet managers was never on my back, per se. For the most part, I didn't really hear from them unless they were trying to get back to me or something, or unless I called them. It was very rare where they would call me if I was late or something. Often they would probably just message me on the ELD device. On the plus end, they did call me about, if I got compliments, they would call me about my compliments. Like, hey, we got a call from such and such. They called the company and they told us that you did good at such and such, such and such. So we're calling to show appreciation and say thank you for being a good driver and such and such. So you could tell that they at least tried to care. So I thought that was really cool. Next, I'll talk about maintenance pretty briefly. So one thing about Werner that I liked was they had a bunch of terminals in different states. So being that I was driving over the road in multiple states, it was very rare that I wasn't in a state that was at least close to another state that they had a terminal in. They're at a size where it's a lot more accommodating when it comes down to if I need to stop at a terminal to get something fixed or whatever's going on. It's way more beneficial that they have multiple terminals in multiple places. That being said, they have quarterly MTPs, which is pretty much truck inspections, where like 4 times a year you have to go to a terminal and they will check everything in your truck just to make sure that it's running well and everything's fine. I really took that for granted because this time around my current company doesn't do that. The responsibility is more in your hands than it was at Werner, and I think that's partially because they are over the road, and so they do care about their trucks, and they understand that driving constantly every day for long periods of time, 11 hours, could put a lot of wear and tear on the truck. So every 3 months they will have you go in and get your truck inspected. And then lastly, accommodations and the perks. So one of the things that I liked about Werner is that they allowed you to have passengers. I'm now finding out that not every company allows passengers, but Werner does. They had it where you would pay $12 a month for the insurance of passenger just in case an accident happened, that Werner wouldn't be liable. And so that was cool. I think the passenger had to be 10 years of age or older. And then also you would be able to have dogs and cats and stuff like that if you wanted to. I don't think you can have like a bunch of them, but that was cool. My bad, y'all. My camera cut off, but we're almost done. Also, because my camera cut off, we're now recording off of my phone. So if the quality is a little bit different, my apologies. So we already spoke about passengers and the $12 a month and dogs and cats and stuff like that. Another perk is whenever you break down and things like that, they will pay for a hotel room. It's a gamble on whether or not you'll have a roommate. dependent upon the location and things like that. There's been more times where I've had a room to myself than with a roommate once I got over the road on my own. So that was a perk, because you know, if you're not paying for a hotel, you pretty much in a different state doing your own thing in your own hotel room and then waiting on your truck to get worked on. You're not paying for it. You can go find you a place to eat and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. Like for instance, for Christmas of 2019, I was in Oregon because my truck was getting worked on. I found myself, you know, venturing out. I had a nice time. I was also in a hotel in Texas at one point. I was enjoying myself there. So, you know, all types of stuff like that. One thing that I will speak about that I thought was super dope with Werner was that I was over the road, right? And generally over the road, you would go home probably every 2 weeks if you wanted to. But I banged it out where I would probably go home once every 2 months, once or twice every 2 months. But the thing about it is when I did want to go home, they had it where, or they at least stated that we would have a set amount of days of vacation time. But I don't know if I accrued a lot of vacation time or if they were just real nonchalant about it. But for the most part, whenever I told them like, hey, I want to go home from this day until this day, they'd be like, all right, as long as I told them ahead of time. And so they would get me a route back to Michigan. And when I would go home, they just weren't really on my back about when I would come back. Even if I had stayed and it was the last day of the time that I said I was going to be there, I wouldn't get a call like, hey, where you at? You gonna be ready to get in a truck? And there were times where I would call and be like, hey, I know I said I wanted to come back at such and such time today, but I want to stay an additional day. They'd be like, all right, cool. Let us know when you ready to come back. So it was real cool. I didn't want to abuse it or anything like that, but I'm just saying that they were real sweet with not being on my back about coming back. They never pressured me and they never complained if I stayed an additional day or 2 or 3. Because there were times where I was going to stay for a week and I ended up staying almost 2 weeks. And they were never tripping about that. And when I came back, there was no issue. And I never had an issue with that for that matter. So that's one of the best pros about Werner in my opinion. Now that was my experience. And I did have a specific fleet manager. And maybe that fleet manager was just cooler. But what I will say is I never had anything on my record for that matter. One other thing about Werner that I really liked was they showed driver appreciation. They even had a driver appreciation day, or a few days for that matter, of the year, where they would have all of the terminals, or I don't know if it was every single terminal, but I know that they would have food at the terminals for the drivers, and they would pretty much have it where if you pulled in, they would give you some free stuff and they would give you food. And I also was nominated for driver of the month, and though I didn't win, I was credited $50 in my account, which, hey, $50. So, you know, stuff like that. They really did show appreciation to their drivers. And for such a large company, that surprised me, because, you know, you hear a lot about larger companies being greedy and not really caring or showing appreciation. They can care all they want to, but they made the intention to show their appreciation. So I really did appreciate Werner for that. So just a brief talk into the facilities, just so you can have an idea of what the terminals look like. Not every terminal was the same. So for instance, Joliet, Illinois was one of their bigger terminals. I think Omaha, since the headquarters is in Omaha, I think they had the biggest terminal, but I could be wrong. But I know, like, for instance, Joliet, Illinois, they have showers for their drivers. They have a gift shop for you if you wanted to buy like a hoodie or something. They have a laundry facility where you can pay for the coin laundry, but being that it's their company's laundry, it was 75 cents per load, as opposed to going to an actual laundry place and it being like $2, $4. So that was cool. So real quick, I'll say my cons about Werner. Firstly, in the cabs, you don't have like a refrigerator or a microwave. You don't really have any appliances. That was something that I had to maneuver with. So I did have an inverter, and an inverter, I've said this in a few other videos, but an inverter is when you have a battery separate from the battery that's powering your truck that is hooked up to this power cord. Sort of looks like an extension cord, and you're able to plug things up that will have the 2 or 3 prongs that would go into an outlet in your truck. So that was pretty cool. I used that to power my appliances, which I used 3 separate appliances. I didn't plug them up all at the same time, but I used those to cook. And then I also had this cooler that had the cigarette lighter plug, so I would just plug it into the regular car power source, and then I was able to use the cooler as a refrigerator because it was an electric cooler. So I worked around it and it was fine. One other thing is, and I'm recognizing that it's not really specific to Werner, but with Werner I will say that sometimes it was difficult getting in touch with my fleet managers, but the pro to that is that we did also have the option to message them through the Qualcomm. That's what it's called. The ELD is also considered the Qualcomm. I was able to message them through there, so that was cool. I'm hoping I said everything. Okay, one thing that I did forget to mention, which is very brief, is just my overall conclusion to this video, which is that Werner is a good company. I do, in my opinion, feel that Werner is a good starter off company for people who have never been on the road before, for people who practically have no experience, for people who are just trying to start out, because Werner is one of those companies that'll have a cushion for you. If you don't know too much about the truck, you don't have to be someone who's super responsible just yet. I mean, you do have to get there, but to start off, Werner, they do MTPs on your truck. They make sure that your truck is up and running. They have multiple facilities throughout the country where if in case something breaks down, you can always have your truck towed. You don't have to pay for the maintenance. A lot of stuff is handed to you, whether it be the fifth wheel grease or the coolant. All of that stuff is free. You don't have to worry about having to buy it or having to go to the stores to get it. You just have to make sure that you get it from the facilities that you go to and they hand it off to you. Your fleet managers are there to help you. This isn't a smaller company where some startup companies, there's not many people to be reliant upon. Werner is such a big company that there are plenty of people there to back you up just in case. Why do I sound like an Everest commercial? But there's plenty of people there to back you up just in case you need help. So I would just encourage you, if you are considering a startup company and you're unsure, check out Werner if they have all the things that meet your criteria, and hopefully they have something that would allow you to be regional in your state. I would check that out too. But if it sounds like something that fits you, I wouldn't deter you from it. Werner is a good company. It was my first company and I enjoyed them. They showed appreciation towards me and they really started me off with having a good resume for future companies ahead. But yeah, I hope that this video was informative for you. I'm sure that I got everything that I at least had in mind to say. But if you guys have any more questions about my experience with Werner, or if you want me to post any other videos that dives more specifically into my experience with Werner, let me know in the comments below and I will try to get those up as soon as I can. But I love you guys so much. I'm very appreciative that I was able to do this video while eating because I was starving. Now I'm a little full, so right after this I'm about to start editing. But I love you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. See you next Sunday. Bye. Wait, I want some more collard greens. Oh wait. Also shout out to vegan soul food in Detroit. I think on West Grand Boulevard or something like that. Fire. It's good. The only thing I would say I didn't like is the macaroni, but the macaroni, it's all right. It sort of reminds me of almond milk. I said that, but The best thing on the plate, by the way, was the collard greens. The collard greens was fire. Next was these spring rolls, which coincidentally is collard green spring rolls. So you can see that I have a favorite. Fire. Thank you so much, Vegan Soul Food. I'll probably be back, but I will exclude the macaroni. All right, y'all. See y'all in the next video. Bye. Excuse me.